remove that, sir. Good evening, sir.
What was that 161?
Good evening.
Good evening, Andy. Andarki good evening.
Vijayalakshmi.
Good evening.
Lakshmi na?
అవునవును.
Hi, Lakshmi.
హాయ్ సుమతి.
Hi, Lakshmi. Hi, Sumati.
హాయ్ హాయ్ అండి. మిమ్మల్ని అందరినీ పర్సనల్ గా ఎప్పుడు చూస్తానో ఏంటో.
Very soon.
వెరీ సూన్. ఐ హోప్.
ఝాన్సీ మేడం
క్యాలెండర్ తిరిగిపోద్దేమోనండి.
Adi definitely next year. We will meet physically. Yeah.
We'll meet in our house. We'll all meet in our house.
ఓకే అండి.
Okay. Get together here.
We can meet in your school.
Yeah, we can meet for a dinner.
ఓకే అండి తప్పకుండా.
Outdoor is perfectly all right.
The problem will be that if you have a dinner after all these years, months of having a dinner, everybody and his spouse will be there.
Doesn't matter. We are rotary.
You'll have a traffic jam on your
Doesn't
street.
matter. All are welcome.
We were just remarking, Champaka and I, that since we came back from Ahmedabad, we have not eaten outside food a single day. We've not ordered in and we've not eaten out.
Good, taking care.
Same here, Raghav. Nothing from
Healthy. That's why looking healthy. Raghav, both of you are looking very healthy. That's why.
You can't see all of us to judge. You can't see us. You can only see our faces.
Yeah.
Hi, Sri Krishna.
Governors visit, they're having that 2 days back, Hyderabad Pulse had, Hyderabad East had all that physical meetings with dinner, fellowship, they started already.
I see.
Yeah, it started.
It's not advisable. It's not advisable.
No.
So I will
I
wait
don't
for
think
some
it's the
time.
right time as yet.
I think
No.
we should
Let's not rush it.
be too adventurous.
Let's not rush it.
No.
50 plus clubs, governor has visited official visits in Andhra, physical meeting. Well, everybody started, nobody's bothering. Let's see what it comes. Yes, and you.
So much. Yeah. Okay. Sheshu, are you really there? No. Who? How do you know? No. The video is off. His video is off. So I'd sent an invite to many of my batchmates from IIM Ahmedabad. So I can see only one person. He's not putting on his video. KV Ramaseshan.
Okay, for today's meeting?
Yeah.
Raghav, I posted in many groups, Raghav.
Mm-hmm.
Even I have posted.
Rotary, non-rotary. I think the timing is a bit. People are still working now at 5:30. Yeah, a little bit.
Again, probably somebody might miss the time, I also seen it little bit.
Hi, Kashi.
Arun, good evening.
Good evening, everybody.
RK, I thought you were in US.
Why should I go there?
You said you're leaving.
Until Trump confirms that he's lost the election, I will not be going there, okay?
Then you don't go.
I don't know.
I thought you said that
Maybe the example of at the time of Jefferson also he had a similar problem.
Yeah.
I think it was in year 1800.
Kalahasteswarudu blessings ఉన్నాయి people గారు మాట్లాడారు.
Hi, Bibi.
Raja, guest వచ్చారు. Come on, let us start.
Yeah, we shouldn't wait any longer.
Very good evening, all. Raghav?
Yeah, Raja, why don't we make a start? I think it's a good time.
Yeah,
Hussein
Mr. Hossain
is
is also here.
Hussein is back. Yep. You can ring your bell.
Yeah, very good evening, all. Meeting is called to order. I welcome you all to this wonderful and informative speaker meeting. I thank Raghav for organizing a wonderful speaker of the day. Now I request Reverend Kalyan Reddy to give the thought of the day.
Yeah. Good evening to all Rotarians. Thanks, President Mr. Raja Krishna, for giving me this opportunity. I believe our flag is more than just cloth and ink. It is universally recognized symbol that stands for liberty and freedom. It is the history of our nation, and it's marked by the blood of those who died defending it. Be proud to be an Indian. Thank you.
Thank you, Kalyan. It's very inspiring thought of the day. Thank you so much. Now I request I thank all the members for attending the district CRF seminar. It was a grand success, and our club stood #1 in the registrations also. So now I request Lieutenant Raghav to introduce the speaker of the day.
I'll just mute everybody.
Yeah, please.
Okay, so friends, a day I've been looking forward to, Champaka and I have been looking forward to for some days, is finally here with us. 1 minute, you want me to change the spotlight? Okay, we remove the spotlight. Yeah. We want a speaker view. Okay. Why is Raja still showing as a spotlight? I don't know. Anyway, let's go on. So, as I was mentioning before, a few minutes ago, when others were on the group, Champaka and I first heard General Hasnain. Of course, we'd heard him so many times on the TV, participating in TV debates, generally always on matters of security, but always on channels which were which were not the shouting brigade types. So it was always, having heard him then, when we got the opportunity to hear him talk about the China situation, Indo-China situation, a few weeks ago, addressing the Rotary Club, I think of Bombay South, we thought we should try and get him to speak to our club too. And I contacted him and he was gracious enough to accept. And I particularly requested him to talk about the Kashmir situation, because I knew that he was intimately associated with Kashmir, having done 7 tours of duty there. He's had a very illustrious 40-year career in the army, has served in very turbulent environments, not only in Jammu and Kashmir, as I mentioned, but also abroad in Sri Lanka, as well as on other assignments abroad. Also spent time in the Northeast. He's got a very strong academic background, having come out of Sherwood College in Nainital and St. Stephen's, Delhi, before going to the Royal College of Defence Studies, King's College London, and the Asia Pacific Center for Security Studies in Hawaii. He's been at the forefront of encouraging the adoption of what is called the scholar warrior concept in the Indian Army. He's now even more associated with Jammu and Kashmir, having been appointed as the Chancellor of the Central University of Kashmir. He's also a member of the National Disaster Management Authority. 1 second. Knowing that Zoom calls can be from anywhere in the world to anywhere, I did ask General Hasnain where he stays. He lives in Noida, and he lives with his family. He's got an older daughter, and lucky enough to have an older daughter's child, who's his 10-year-old grandchild living nearby. We grandfathers always look forward to having grandchildren around. And his younger daughter also stays with him. They're a busy family. His wife also works. So General Hasnain, of course, is shuttling between TV studios and between sitting at his computer. I've been receiving from him links of so many articles that he's been writing almost every day on the whole strategic situation. And we're really looking forward to hearing from you, General, about all that you have to tell us about Kashmir, particularly as you've titled your talk, after 5th August 2019, which means the abrogation of Article 370. We're all many of us have been saying that Kashmir has been a thorn in the side of in the whole country for 70 odd years. And is the abrogation of 370 going to be a game changer? So we'd love to hear from you. Over to you, General. Yeah.
Good evening, Jai Hind. And thank you very much, Mr. Rao. Thank you so much for inviting me for this talk to your organization. And I was discussing with you all a short while ago. It's a pleasure to be with the Rotaries anywhere. Always very good, charming people, well-to-do people, cultured people. So I've done a couple of them in Mumbai, a couple of them in Kolkata. In Delhi, I'm always in demand with the Rotaries. But the first time I'm doing it to Hyderabad and the twin cities of Hyderabad and Secunderabad. But what a pleasure, and thank you so much for that introduction. And obviously, when you invited me to come in for this talk, I had no hesitation at all, let me say that. Although after the Mumbai talk, I got invitations from a lot of people in Mumbai, Baroda, other places, but I took yours on as the first one. So I'm very, very happy doing this. One or two housekeeping things, even in this you have to do. Noida is not the best of places for power. So although I live in a condominium with full backup of power, but what happens is if the power goes off, it takes 5 seconds for it to come on, 10 seconds for it to come on, in which you normally lose your Wi-Fi. So I've got a continuous Wi-Fi with a hotspot made up, but it may just happen that you may lose me for a little while, but I will somehow technologically put my act together to make sure that I come back. That's an aspect you have to just remember. So just give me 10 seconds to share my screen with you. I think you have disabled participant screen sharing from your end. You may have to enable that. You may have to enable that, Mr. Raghav Rao. I don't know, whoever is acting as the, now I can. I can see.
One point I'll just make, General, and to the audience, and that is that if you've got questions, please put them in the chat box, and I will review them. And if we have time towards the end, we'll pose those questions if they haven't already been fixed. But I do think that we should focus on now and future rather than going to why did this situation happen. I'm sure he'll be covering all that.
Okay. Absolutely a lot on the future, in fact including a slide on the Biden-Harris presidency that is there. But this situation I want to present to you with a bit of a background too, because I don't think in India the most educated people have even understood a lot of things which are, the nuances of this problem in Kashmir, which I want to bring to your notice, particularly from the angle of how Pakistan is playing this particular game against us. So you'll have to, that will be one of the aspects of focus of my talk. So I'm just putting this on. Yeah. Can you see my presentation?
Perfect.
Great. So removal of Article 370, the situation in Jammu and Kashmir and dealing with Pakistan-sponsored terrorism. As you're aware, probably, day before yesterday, we had, rather on the 7th evening, we had 2 encounters in the day. We lost 4 of our men, killed 3 terrorists. This is on the 7th of November. On the 1st of April, we had a similar encounter, not very far from where this encounter has taken place now in November, where we lost 5 of our special forces, that's para-commando personnel, and killed 5 terrorists. So I spoke to the Corps commander yesterday, the overall commander of Kashmir. I spoke to him yesterday. That's the position I occupied at one time. And I told him that this is my observation, that at the beginning of the season, you lost 5 men. And at the end of the season, you've lost 4 men. It doesn't matter to me how many terrorists you have killed, because terrorists can come and go. We will get them. Even if you lose a terrorist today, I'll kill him 10 days later, 20 days later. I don't like to lose my men, because this is something which we have nurtured. These are the sons of our soil. We cannot afford to lose our men. So we should do something to review as to what is going wrong in some of our procedures, even 30 years later, 30 years after this whole thing is started. And the general agreed with me and promised to investigate immediately and take suitable action. So I thought I must just start by telling you that. So, okay. I call it a prologue, the start point. This is just a broad background to it. The removal of Article 370. It used to give a special status to Jammu and Kashmir. And my perception is it was a necessity. A lot of people disagree with me. A lot of people say that, and in fact, even before the action taken by the NDA government, I was one person who was a little apprehensive about this, even with my experience of Kashmir. But I used to feel that the removal of Article 370 at any stage without consultation with the people may lead to a very, very tumultuous situation in Jammu and Kashmir. It didn't happen. I was proven wrong. It didn't happen. And I'm very happy that I was proven wrong. The second thing is the separatist vision and identity were enabled by the exclusivity that Article 370 gave to Jammu and Kashmir. You see, after 70 years, here was still a territory in which we used to say that the UN resolutions have been overtaken by history. Pakistan attempted to use force in 47-48, used force in 65, they attempted it in 89, they attempted it in 99. And therefore, we only go by Shimla Agreement, we don't go by UN resolutions. So why are we treating Jammu and Kashmir with any degree of speciality? Is an important aspect to understand, because the moment we attached that exclusivity to Jammu and Kashmir, it gave a sense of being different to the people. And it therefore gave a spurt to what Pakistan was attempting to do in Kashmir. That is promote a proxy war, promote separatism. It also helped Pakistan pursue that proxy war which I was speaking of. The situation after the 5th of August, after the decisions were taken, which surprised a lot of people around the world, they may not have returned Kashmir to full normalcy. I do not ever say that they have returned to full normalcy. Remember a very important statement, that is, the absence of violence is not normalcy. Absence of violence is not normalcy. There's a lot of many more things which contribute to making normalcy. Why is Hyderabad normal? It is normal. I mean, because there's the absence of violence. Is that the reason? No. There is an administration in place. You have the freedom to go where you want. Your children have the freedom to go in the evenings and mingle, mix anywhere socially. You have so many freedoms available to you. And that is why the situation is so normal. That's not the situation in Kashmir. But the security situation at the moment is not far from stable. I mean, it won't be correct for me to say it's far from stable, but it is still simmering. It is still simmering. And far, far better than what it was a year ago, year and a half ago. Much better than what it was 4 years ago, 2016, when the very famous Uri incident, the very famous Nagrota incident, and all these incidents took place in that particular year. Governance has become easier, even as steps towards democracy are being taken. But remember, we are very far from any situation of being able to conduct an election, because mainstream parties have taken a step back. Mainstream parties are participating in the district councils elections, which are due in December. But besides that, in mainstream other elections, they've decided not to participate. We don't know what is the future of politics, how the politics in Kashmir are going to play out. Remember, at the end of the day, normalcy in our region really is outlined by the absence of violence, the pursuit of democracy, the ability to have a political situation which is conducive to normal political life. That is a very, very important aspect which is missing in Kashmir at the moment. So to comprehend what really has happened, what the situation is, and where Jammu and Kashmir is heading today, a very brief analysis is required, and I'm going to look at the following things. First is Jammu and Kashmir's strategic importance. And to expect a general of the Indian Army to conduct a talk without a map, it should not be done normally, because maps are an essential part of our life. And we always, the moment we hear of a problem, we like to put it on a map and start understanding it. So I'm going to do that with the help of a couple of maps. The second one is, what is Pakistan's game plan? We have to take this issue apart a little bit and look at it part-wise. What is Pakistan's game plan? What are they looking at? And then what is our counter strategy? How far have they succeeded? How far have we succeeded? What is our counter strategy? Where is the failure and where is our success? Then at the end, of course, I will tell you a little on what to expect in the future. This is the same map, Mr. Rao, which you saw in my presentation on China. And this is the same map which I'm going to show you here. But I'm not going to talk so much on this map. I'm only going to talk one or two things. The common understanding in India is that Pakistan is an irrelevant nation compared to India. That it's a poor cousin created out of a partition. They have $15 billion in their foreign exchange reserves today. We have got $550 billion. That should make the difference between India and Pakistan, right? And we have the United States now looking for us for a transformational strategic relationship with us. Well, they've got a relationship with Pakistan, with China, all right, and they've got an emerging relationship with Russia. But what is the importance of Pakistan? That over years, China, Russia, earlier the United States, have been always seeking a friendship with this country. What is the importance? The prime reason for this importance is its geostrategic location. The location given to it by God on the map of the world. Why is this important? Number one, it is one of the few countries in the world which has got 5 civilizations which are surrounding it. It's got the Indian, the Chinese, the Central Asian, the Persian, and the Arab civilization all around it. You will not find a country like this in the world. Right? Second thing, it controls the access to the heart of Asia. This is called the heart of Asia, Central Asia, right? And also the access from Central Asia to the Indian Ocean. It controls it. That's primarily because Iran also controls it, but Iran, being pariah at the moment, doesn't have that kind of an access. Then, without Pakistan, who can fight a war in Afghanistan? You have to come through the Pakistan route. You have to take Pakistan on board. The Americans couldn't have fought this war through Turkmenistan or Tajikistan. They had to have Pakistan on board because of the logistics involved. You can't start making airheads and putting all your logistics by huge transport aircraft. It's just too expensive. Even a country like America cannot afford it. And the last reason is that it gives China a tremendous advantage of an access through Jammu and Kashmir through Pakistan to this portion of the Indian Ocean, which is very important for China's energy security. From there, here comes all its energy. And therefore, to secure the base, the Chinese want to have their presence at Chabahar here. They have their presence at Djibouti here. So this area of the Northwest Indian Ocean is under their control. At least they feel it is under their control. And that these important routes from here going through the sea straits of Malacca to the East China seaboard, although they are very important for the economy of China, but they do not become so relevant if this route has been developed over land. This is through the China-Pakistan economic corridor. Okay. Another map, just to give you broadly Jammu and Kashmir. I'll show you a map after this. Now you see this map, 1st of October 2019, you see the whole of Jammu and Kashmir. Ladakh is all here, Gilgit-Baltistan, Aksai Chin, all part of Ladakh. This is what the Indian map is now. And this is Jammu and Kashmir, including Mirpur, Muzaffarabad, Kotali, all these areas of Pakistan occupied Kashmir. Everything is included here. This is the map we claim as per the 22nd February resolution of 1994, where the parliament came together, Mr. Narasimha Rao, Mr. Vajpayee came together, the BJP, the Congress got together, and they passed this resolution that all territories of Jammu and Kashmir, which were under the Maharaja of Kashmir, belong to India, and India will aspire to get them back. And that's why this map has been created on the 1st of October 2019. But before this map needs to be understood. That is the virtual map. This is the reality on ground. And let me explain 2-3 things to you. Regions on this map, whose control over which, and the borders. This is the Kashmir Valley. This is the Jammu region. This is the area called Jammu and Kashmir Union Territory now. This is Ladakh, the second Union Territory. J&K divided into 2 parts. This is Pakistan occupied Kashmir, the sliver of territory here, well populated. This is Gilgit-Baltistan, not so well populated, only 1.5 million population on a huge area such as this. Colloquially, the area is all called Pakistan occupied Kashmir. This gray area here you see is called the Shaksgam Valley. Shaksgam Valley is the area of Gilgit-Baltistan given by Pakistan illegally to China to construct what is called the Karakoram Highway. The Karakoram Highway comes from here and comes like this. It's now been converted into the China-Pakistan economic corridor. This is the Siachen Glacier, and at the end of my talk, if I have time, I've got one slide specially kept for you to explain the Siachen problem. And this is the area of Aksai Chin. What is the Aksai Chin problem really saying? I thought let me mention it to you. The Chinese have constructed a road here in 1956. The road from Lhasa to Kashgar, so that the Chinese could have their control over Xinjiang, the area in which they're having a lot of problem with the Uyghur Muslims at the moment. So this area with this road was constructed through Aksai Chin, which is Indian territory. But the Chinese decided that no, they put a claim to this territory and actually fought the 62 war and came forward to Chushul and all these areas and gave depth to that road so that we could not go and sort of disturb that road. And they have stayed there ever since, and they've got their claims further, which is why the current Ladakh problem is on. What are the borders here? This is the first border, green border on the Jammu region. It's called the international border. No problem here. But the Pakistanis call it the working boundary and not the international border. They say even this border may require some kind of a final settlement. Then you have the pink line here, which is called the line of control, LOC. This is occupied by the Indian Army on our side, by the Pakistan Army on their side. Incidentally, the line, this IB is not occupied by the Indian Army. It is occupied by the BSF. Right? Army only comes there if required in war. This is how a LOC is occupied by the army on a permanent basis. And it's an eyeball to eyeball contact. And this line is properly delineated, properly designated on the map. And we have signed on the dotted line under a Suchetgarh agreement of 1972. Right? So there's no problem, but there is a lot of instability in terms of the situation here. We are always fighting at each other. There's infiltration taking place and all kinds of things here. Right? Then here north, we've got this place called NJ 9842. From 9842 up to the north here is a line called the actual ground position line, AGPL, 121 kilometers along what is called the Saltoro Ridge, which is one flank of the Siachen Glacier, and I will explain that to you separately. And here, don't go by these lines which have been constructed, but in reality, there is no line. The line of actual control, LAC, that's the difference. Just remember, it's a general knowledge point. LOC in pink here, the LAC in red here. The LAC is non-existent actually, because the Chinese and the Indian side have not come to a common perception of where the LAC is. So if we have a perception of the LAC, the Chinese have a perception of the LAC. Our perception goes into their territory, their perception comes into our territory. So as a result, every other year, we have our patrols going in, they have their patrols coming to this side, and we've been clashing with each other, but we have not fired a single shot over all these years, except when it happened in Galwan, where again, without shooting, 20 Indian soldiers died, and a fair number of Chinese soldiers, undeclared so far, also were killed. So this is about the broad territories out here. This I've already explained to you is the map actually on ground. This is the map on paper, which is how an Indian should, when an Indian is going abroad, he should always project this map. Always show this map. This is how we look at Jammu and Kashmir. The whole territory belongs to India. Now, this is a very fascinating map. This map is an artist's impression of the Kashmir Valley. Today's problem is primarily the Kashmir Valley, not so much in this southern area. The southern area is south of the Pir Panjal. Let me just explain this map to you. Someone who's not been to Kashmir at all, just remember Srinagar is here, right here, center, right? What does the valley mean? This is the Pir Panjal range. This is the Kishtwar range, the Great Himalayan range here, short portion of it on Kashmir, and this is called the Shamshabari range. So the space, the flat space between all these mountains is called the Kashmir Valley. And most valleys are always drained by a river. So here you have the Jhelum River drained from here. All along it is drained here. Takes a turn, goes to Baramulla, Uri, goes beyond. If you visit Kashmir ever, then Uri, from 18 kilometers from Uri is a place called Kaman, the command post. You must go there, and that's where the line of control. That's the only place on the line of control that you can actually visit if you have informed the army about it. Can I request that if we can put so you can put everyone on mute, then I can unmute myself. Okay, this is fine. Now let me explain a few things to you. This is North Kashmir. This portion is North Kashmir. This is South Kashmir. Jammu is this side, Udhampur. Jammu and Kashmir forms this complete area. This is Zojila. From here, the road goes and steps into the Ladakh sector. Now, this road, Zojila, snow has not yet come this year, but in another 10 days' time, Zojila Pass will close. Then it will open only in April end. So the road to Ladakh is closed. The road from Manali will also be closed, despite the tunnel being open, but there are other areas which are high. So the snow level being there, that will also close. So Ladakh is cut off for the next 5 months, right? When we open the road in April end or so, then the convoys will start moving. Throughout the last 5-6 months, this road has been chock full with convoys moving up, taking our troops, additional troops to Ladakh, additional rations, additional petrol and diesel and ammunition and animals and all kinds of things. My God, you can't imagine what all goes into moving 40,000-45,000 troops into a sector. Right, tremendous amount is gone. Those troops are all they are all dependent on 200 days of ration and fuel, which is dumped for them there. That's a prerequisite to living in Ladakh. 200 days of all this has to be dumped. Okay. Now I will be brief about Kashmir itself. North Kashmir. This is the area through which the infiltration takes place. You see, that side is Kishanganga. That is the Pakistan side. From there, across the line of control, they attempt to try and infiltrate. We can't be at every 1 meter. If you put a man at every 1 meter, you need thousands of men, right? So we occupy certain important areas and keep the rest of the areas under patrolling and the surveillance, etc. The place where this incident has taken place, day before yesterday, is somewhere here. It's called the Machal area. It's taking place here. So this is a desperate attempt by the Pakistanis to push in the terrorists at this time, because the winter is very soon. There'll be snow and all these things will get closed. It will not be possible to move here. And why are they so desperate? Because we have killed more than 200 terrorists this year. And because we have killed 200 terrorists, the number of terrorist strength has reduced in the winter. And in winter, there's a lot of activity which goes on. And if they don't push in additional terrorists inside, if they don't push in additional leaders inside, then you will find that the terrorist movement will start dying down. That is the whole intent that we have. We wanted to die down, right? We have brought the strength of terrorists from 7,000, it used to be in the 90s, to about 250 today. But they are there, 250 are there, and we are having contacts with terrorists almost every other day. So this northern area is the area where you have a lot of foreign terrorists. Foreign terrorists means Pakistanis. Earlier, we used to have Chechnyan, Egyptian, Afghan, a lot of terrorists used to come from different countries. But today, the jihadis, so-called, are only from Pakistan. And generally, they are the ones in this area in greater percentage. The southern area, this area, is the richer area of Kashmir. This is the area where you have a better apple. The apple crop is very good here. You get very good saffron and pampor, and you have better educated people, white-collar workers, etc. But the most important thing, ideologically, this place is more radicalized. People think that actually the radicalized element, the radicalization of Kashmir comes from primarily one entity which is called the Jamaat-e-Islami Kashmir. Jamaat-e-Islami Kashmir is not headquartered at Srinagar. It is headquartered here at a place called Kulgam. And that is what contributes to the huge radicalization of this area. Lots and lots of mosques which over a period of time have been financed by money which has come in from all kinds of directions, which most people have not even come to know where it's come from. This money has come from all different directions in times when we were not so aware. Today, of course, we are extremely aware about these things, and it's not easy to get money into the valley in this manner, but it's happened over a period of time. And that's how it got all radicalized. So let me not spend more time on that. Let me come straight to the thing of what is the drivers of conflict. What are the drivers of conflict today in Jammu and Kashmir? The first is the sentiment which exists in Pakistan, and particularly in the Pakistan army, for revenge for 1971, what happened in 71. The second is the Islamic connection, that they feel that this is territory, this is population which is primarily Islamic, Muslim, and they have a common affinity with the people of Pakistan, and therefore they are duty bound to put them on their side. So they must fight this conflict. The third is the waters issue. All the rivers which are flowing into Pakistan, their source is in India, or rather in Kashmir. Kashmir is a part of India, so it's all there in Kashmir. So they want to make sure that the source of the water comes to their hands. If for example, the Jhelum flows into Pakistan, they want the source of the Jhelum in their hands, because they feel that India can otherwise control it. India has done nothing. India has been very, very kind, very soft on this. We have signed the Indus Water Treaty despite the fact that we had such major problems with Pakistan. Today we are thinking of different ways of how we can calibrate on the Indus Waters Treaty. Then there's the China factor. Pakistan is a very important country for China. And China would always want to have Pakistan keeping the Indian army, keeping the Indian nation busy in one corner of the country. That's a place like Jammu and Kashmir. Strategic connectivity, it gives tremendous strategic connectivity to China, to the Indian Ocean, through Gilgit-Baltistan. And if there is peace, complete peace, and India starts claiming back the whole of Gilgit-Baltistan and succeeds one day in getting Gilgit-Baltistan back, where do the Chinese have their connectivity? How do they connect to there'll be no China-Pakistan economic corridor. So this is one of the major reasons as a driver of conflict. Then you have Pakistan's deep state. The deep state is beyond the army. It is the portions of the army, the clergy, portions of the judiciary, people who are deeper than the government. It's an extrajudicial government, and I'll speak on this a little separately. And the last is, they are worried about the strategic confidence of India, the rising strategic confidence of India. This decision to abrogate Article 370 actually sent an indicator. Before that, the Balakot strike, before that, the surgical strike, the handling of Doklam in 2017, the killing of Burhan Wani in 2016. All this has led to a perception prevailing on the other side that India is getting more and more strategically confident. And therefore, one day it may attempt to do something on Pakistani territory like Gilgit-Baltistan. And that is why one of the reasons which I ascribe to what is happening in Ladakh today, that the Chinese and the Pakistanis together decided that it was necessary to cow India down. That's one of the contributing reasons. But the age-old strategy which Pakistan has played is that after 71, in 72, they signed the Shimla Agreement. But Shimla Agreement, it basically meant that both countries agreed to make it only a bilateral affair. No second, third party, no UN coming into it, nothing at all. right? It is only between India and Pakistan after we released the 93,000 prisoners, but Pakistanis have not really lived by that spirit. You know, every year they raise the issue in the UN with their prime minister raising it in the month of August or so. Or internationally around the world, they keep talking about Kashmir and what India has done and why India has not agreed to the UN resolutions, etc. All this is not supposed to be done under the Shimla Agreement, but Pakistan does it. Right? In 1977, Ziaul Haq overthrew Bhutto. Civilian government came to an end in 5 years. And then a thing called Zia Doctrine, which is being played till today and will be continued to be played. That doctrine came into place. What is that doctrine? The doctrine is essentially that Pakistan cannot match India's army. It's too big. Pakistan cannot match India's economic strength. It's just too big. So how does Pakistan achieve any revenge for 71? Well, one of the ways it does it is it has to achieve parity with India by being nuclear. And Pakistan is nuclear. That's why they went hammer and tongs after acquiring nuclear technology by any means, all kinds of means that they acquired it, to overcome the asymmetry between India and Pakistan. In very, very brief terms, in very, very simple terms, when two nations are, both nuclear, one nation may have 100 weapons and the other nation has got 10 weapons, there is still parity between the two. Because I may destroy 30 of your cities, but you have the capability to destroy 5 of my cities. That's not acceptable. But at the end of it, remember, nuclear weapons are only weapons of deterrence. They are not weapons of warfighting at all. Right? The last is, Pakistan knows that it cannot defeat India on the conventional battlefield. It will not give a situation. It is hopeful that the escalatory ladder, the escalation will always be controlled. That is why something like Pulwama, killing of 40 CRPF soldiers, it knew that India will strike. It knew that Pakistan has to do something to regain some of its pride, but it also probably appreciated that it won't go beyond that. Sometimes they may go wrong in their calculations. But what they've decided is that they will not look to conventional war, which means a war of tanks, a war of guns, a war of... It will not do that. What they will do is they will launch a war by 1,000 cuts. It's an age-old concept of war, which is today one of the most modern forms of war at the same time. It's called hybrid war. And today's means, today's technology is giving more and more means to fight this hybrid war. What is this hybrid war? It's a war which is a combination of different elements of the spectrum of conflict. Conflict doesn't necessarily mean only an AK-47 against an AK-47. It doesn't mean a soldier against a soldier. It can also mean a banker against a banker. It can also mean a lot of good propaganda, which affects the minds of your population. Tells the Kashmiri, you cannot be Indian. You cannot be Indian. You are Muslim, you are Islamic, you are a part of Pakistan. How can you be Indian? So the idea of Azadi, the idea of independence, the idea of merging with Pakistan has to be kept alive. That's an essential element of conflict. Most people think that conflict is only about weapon on against weapon. That's an age-old system of looking at conflict. Conflict is a mixture of domains. You see the domains I've worked out for you. A conventional on the LOC, exchange of artillery fire, etc. Then there's irregular and terrorism. Terrorists coming in, people on the streets throwing stones. That's also a form of war. Cyber war, to bring down your systems. Mumbai, for example, 20 days ago had a huge power outage. My assessment is it was nothing but an experimental cyber attack on Mumbai. Economic warfare. India is also launching economic warfare against China. The banning of the 59 apps, then the 118 apps, all this is part of economic warfare. Piracy, transnational crime like Dawood Ibrahim involved so that he creates a complete pandemonium in a city like the financial capital of India, Mumbai. Violent extremism, psychological warfare, war by communication, which is essentially propaganda. All this can be, you can have bits and pieces of this combined together in different times, in different ways, with different proportions, and to continue fighting this war. This is how Pakistan has fought us for the last 30 years. 30 years they have taught us this. The problem in India is no one understood hybrid war. Very rarely did. I started speaking a lot on hybrid war from 2011 when I was the Corps commander. And after 2014, when I retired, I've only been writing on hybrid war. I've been sensitizing the country. I've been sensitizing our generals, our strategic thinkers. In every strategic think tank, I have been speaking on hybrid war. There's only one way by which you can fight hybrid war, and that is called the all-of-government approach. You have to fight. Every department of the government has to fight this war. You can't say this is a war for the army to fight. You can't say this is a war for the BSF to fight, or this is a war for the police to fight. No, we may win our domain of the war, but if your domain of the war is still on, the war is still there very much. For example, if I have brought the strength of terrorists down from 7,000 to 200, but you have done nothing to make sure that the people look at India and consider it their country. If you in the political community have not done that, if you in the bureaucracy have not done that, then you've not done your job. That's the way to look at it. It has to be an all-of-government approach. For too long have we considered that these kind of situations can be overcome by having soldiers fighting terrorists, killing terrorists, at the end of your year saying, we killed 250 terrorists, damn good, we won the conflict. You are nowhere near winning the conflict. Right? Okay. As long as you understood that aspect. What are the essentials of Pakistan's proxy campaign in Kashmir? The first is human. How do you fight this hybrid war? The first is human resources. You got terrorists, overground workers, those people who are every day around. They could be media people, they could be lawyers, they could be bankers, they could be politicians. People who are supporting the terrorists, but they're not terrorists. They're supporting the terrorists. Logistically supporting, motivationally supporting, psychologically supporting. And they're coming in as a commander in Kashmir, they would come to me, they would have a cup of tea with me, they would even dine with me at times, but at the end of the day, they were always working against me. Right? Then you have ideologues like Gilani, you have local recruiters, you have media people, you have logisticians, safe houses. The cost of a safe house has gone up tremendously today because of the pandemic. Okay. Now, wherewithal, you need guns, you need ammunition, you need IED, improvised explosive device material, you need cars. If you have to create a car bomb, it's not so easy to put a car bomb together. It takes you a couple of days. You need an expert to come and put that car bomb together. The car bomb for Pulwama took a month and a half to create. 300 kilos of explosive went into it. Where did this explosive come from? It has to be carried from somewhere. So you need a system for it. You need a network for it. There. Finances. How can you can't fight a war against India? You can't fight a proxy war against the Indian army or anything without money. So the money has to come. A steady flow of money has to be there. Physical cash, bank accounts, foreign transfer, hawala, drug traffic. All of a sudden, drug traffic has gone up hugely in Kashmir because all other systems have been put under control. The NIA has gone after them since 2017 and put everything under control. Achieved a tremendous amount, but they are finding ways by doing it through drugs. Selling of drugs, getting more and more people hung up on drugs. Drug is a major problem in Punjab. It's a major problem in Kashmir. And therefore, this acts as this is the conduit for flow of money. Ideology, extremist radical Islam, Ahle Hadith, which is the Wahhabi strain. It comes from Saudi Arabia. Clergy, the clergy of Kashmir has been changed. You won't find a clergyman who is a Kashmiri. You'll all find UP people, Bihar people, Jharkhand people who have come there, and they are all from the Ahle Hadith, side of Islam. Rabble rousers, Urdu media, literature of all kinds, and the most important thing which makes a huge difference today is social media, which is why the 4G has been closed. A lot of people are criticizing the government of India. That why you robbed the people of this basic human right, which is social media. And government of India is not being able to justify it sufficiently. A lot of people internationally, when I traveled all around the world after the decisions, people were after my life, why is India so hell-bent on keeping these people without their basic rights? Social media is a basic right today. I said, social media is your basic right as long as you're using it for good purposes. But if you're using social media to fight your own nation, then I'm sorry, it is not your human right. It's not your basic right. Right? And even today, the 4G is not completely open at the moment. So these are the essentials through which this whole conflict has been fought. But the most important part in this conflict, in any conflict in the world, there is a terminology called the center of gravity, around which the whole conflict rotates. If you axe that center of gravity, if you defeat that center of gravity, neutralize it, you will win the war. If the enemy neutralizes your center of gravity, he will win the war. The center of gravity in this case is common. It is the people of Kashmir. He who gets the people on his side will win this war. You may do everything. You may kill terrorists. You may cut down the OGWs, overground workers. You may cut down the finances. But if the people are not with you, at the end of the day, this war is not going to end. This is applicable to this kind of a war anywhere in the world. You see that? You see Northern Ireland, exactly the same thing happened. And don't try and compare Israel-Palestine conflict to this, because a lot of people in India do that. Why don't we do what the Israelis do? The Israelis are fighting a nation such as Palestine, which you know what Palestine's capability is, right? Pakistan has an army of 650,000. Does Palestine have that? Right. So let's not compare apples and oranges here. Okay. Now, what is the deep state? I mentioned the deep state too. The deep state in Pakistan is this organization, which is invisible, but it consists of essentially the army, which has got the control on foreign policy, on finance, on home affairs. It's a clandestine government made up of hidden, people, covert networks of power operating independently, which is what you can see here, mentioned here. I mentioned all that for you here. Covert networks of power operating independently of a state's political leadership in pursuit of their own agenda and goals. You see the Pakistan Army generals, they're not like me. Each lieutenant general, 3-star, that's the rank which I retired at, retires with 90 acres of farmland. Okay. He looks for corner plots and he looks for all kinds of things. He's got business houses. He sets up business. You just seen what's happened to one of the Pakistani generals who was the advisor to Imran Khan. He had to be finally removed on pressure from the people. Right? So the deep state runs this entire thing. They are the ones who want this to continue. A slow simmering thing, because that is what ensures it feathers their net. And they seem to be convinced that India is in a deep bind and that they can get the better of India. They don't realize that India has the capacity to hit back, neutralize them, and that is not easy to defeat a country like India. But this deep state tends to believe in itself. It tends to keep fooling civil society. The civil society is very weak in Pakistan. You've seen there's a little serious effort going on at the moment to try and overthrow Imran Khan. But all the opposition parties have come together. There's this whole thing of Pakistan Movement for Democracy, Pakistan Democratic Movement, PDM, which is going on at the moment. But the Pakistan Army is just too powerful. It's just too powerful for this. Okay. As much as you have got this on the Pakistani side, on the Indian side, you have, on our side, as in Kashmir, you have what is called a proxy war terror ecosystem. This is based on networks. I told you, human resources, wherewithal you require, finances you require, right? All this is wedded together into networks, and it's much easier today with social media and internet and things like that. A lot of things can happen. A lot of communication take place. A lot of training can take place without people coming to know about all this. So what is this? How do you define it? It's a nexus of politics. Politicians are very, very important element of this. Politics, media, shady third sector organizations. It could include NGOs, lawyers, academics, intellectuals, bankers. You can be a professor of a university, but you are very much part of the terror ecosystem. You are writing in the media against India. You're motivating the terrorists. You're motivating, bringing in more radicalization, and therefore contributing to it. Right? Okay. So this is a very, very important aspect, the ecosystem. If you want to defeat terror, and if you want to defeat a proxy war, this ecosystem has to be neutralized. We took far too many years to realize this. And although we made a lot of efforts and we kept reducing and killing, reducing the strength of terrorists, but we never went after this. And this is the main thing which contributes to the resurgence of terrorists. The ability for them to bounce back every time that the army has been able to take a position of advantage and strength over them. So why the decision on Article 370 was timely and correct? Why do I think that? From 2016, things started changing. A new generation of terrorists had come in. It was now 26 years since the conflict has started in 89-90. And it was evident that Pakistan would now attempt to give a fillip to its Kashmir strategy. A new strategy had to be brought into place. Because they had fought through terrorists all these years. From 2008, they fought through street agitation, if you remember the stone throwing, right? And stone throwing became a professional job in Kashmir. And from 2016, it was expected that Pakistan would probably change its strategy and bring in something afresh, something new. Second thing was, internationally, India's seriousness about Jammu and Kashmir needed more impact. People were thinking that India is content with keeping the situation simmering like this. Something had to be done to send home that message that India is serious about defeating the Pakistani intent. That message had not gone home sufficiently into the international environment. The third thing was Kashmir's people needed a clear message. We needed to send a clear message. We could not be dilly-dallying on this. I mean, you bring the situation, the army brings the situation to a point and hopes that the political community will take it over and the government will take it over and have their own initiatives to take it forward. Nothing used to happen. So it was important that Kashmir needed a clear message that Azadi, the concept of independence, was not possible. And integration with India was the only way. I think the abrogation of Article 370 sent home that message in no uncertain terms. Clearly. Which is why I say today when Mehbooba Mufti and Umar Abdullah are claiming that they will fight for the return of Article 370, you are fighting, doing shadow boxing. This is something which is just not acceptable to the people of India. It's just not acceptable in India. So what are the challenges for India? The challenges are Pakistan aided infiltration. Why is this infiltration taking place? To fill the numbers, to make sure the strength of terrorists returns up, stays at least around 400, 500. We've reduced it to 200 and less. To bring it to zero is very, very difficult because there will every year be two things. One is little bit of infiltration. You can't stop completely. And there will be recruitment of locals. At every terrorist funeral, our experience was 3 to 4 to 5 young people would come, tie a band on their head, put their head on the feet of the body and decide to become terrorists. Now we've decided that we are not handing over bodies for funerals anymore. In 2016, we took a decision on foreign terrorists. Now we've taken a decision on local terrorists. So there are no public funerals any longer. But despite that, although the strength of recruitment has come down drastically this year, but still it is not completely stopped. Alienation due to hard operations. Many times it happens, hard operations will be conducted. Right? You destroy a house, you have to destroy something, there will be losses by the people, some odd person will die. All this leads to tremendous amount of alienation among the people. Also, because of the prevailing environment, there will be tremendous amount of security checks. Between Baramulla and Srinagar, 55 kilometers, you may find 5 places where your vehicle will be stopped and checked. Now, this becomes very irksome. It's like you going from, let's say, Asif Nagar lines and going to Abid's. And on the way, you are stopped 5 times and asked to show your papers and your Aadhaar card and this and that. And each time someone beats a stick on your bonnet, and it leaves you in a bad state of mind at any time. Then the media in Jammu and Kashmir and the rest of India, I think this is a huge challenge. 30 English newspapers are published in Kashmir every day. That many are not published in Sikandrabad and Hyderabad. Let me show you. Not in Delhi either. 30 English newspapers. 15 Urdu newspapers. Oh my God, the place is just full of media. And lots of things are written. Mostly 70% it is anti-India. We are a democracy. We are a freedom-loving nation. We don't put restrictions of during this time after 5th of August. Some restrictions were put on the media, but that's all gone today. And people are writing what they wish. Politicians are speaking what they wish. Pakistan's information war and diplomatic blitzkrieg has been of a very high order. Let's give it to them. Our diplomatic blitzkrieg was very effective after 5th of August too, where Prime Minister Modi, for example, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Bahrain, France, US, I mean, the kind of all the important countries, everyone was rooting for us and saying it's India's internal matter. Pakistan could not, except for Turkey and Malaysia. Even Saudi Arabia did not vote for them in any way. But I found Pakistan's information warfare still was successful, because wherever I went, people used to question me on the Indian narrative. Why are you not allowing the Kashmiris the freedom to vote? I said, they are free to vote. We are a democratic country. No, why can't they vote to become part of Pakistan? I said that option is not there. Why are you not agreeing to the plebiscite? The plebiscite is what? That after 1948, the war, the UN resolution said, plebiscite will be conducted. That means the choice to stay with Pakistan or India will be given to the people. Whoever side which they vote for, they'll be allowed to go that side. But it will happen provisionally only after the forces which have committed invasion, aggression on the state of Jammu and Kashmir, they withdraw. Now, our point of view is very, very clear, and this needs to be understood by everyone. India has said very clearly, instrument of accession, 26th of October, 1947, the Maharaja of Kashmir signed in favor of India. It was countersigned by Lord Louis Mountbatten as the Governor General of India. So who owned Kashmir at the time when the war started? Obviously, India owned it. So who committed aggression? Obviously, Pakistan had committed it. So if Pakistan has committed it, it has to withdraw its army from all the areas of Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, and then a plebiscite can be conducted. But Pakistan has never withdrawn the army. So history has overtaken the situation. And today we don't accept the UN resolutions, because although formally we have moved nothing to neutralize the resolutions, but we go by 1972 Shimla Agreement, which Pakistan mutually signed with us, and by which we agree a resolution of Jammu and Kashmir through mutual agreement with each other, consultation with each other. And the last, managing international opinion and preventing internationalization. I went to Iran, and I can tell you, I was asked in Iran to speak to the media. I asked the Indian embassy to speak to the media. I went in front of television, the Iranian television and print media, etc. All the questions which were asked from me appeared to have come from Pakistan. There was no Indian perception there prevailing. So Pakistan has done a lot of hard work on this management of international opinion, etc. all around the world. We need to do much more of this, much more. So what has shell-shocked the Pakistanis? What has shell-shocked? Firstly, they are threatening the abrogation of Shimla Accord. They have not formally done it, but they are threatening it, right? And they perceive the effect of India's financial club. They know India's got a lot of money. Notwithstanding COVID situation today, we have the reasonable amount of money. We can put in money into Kashmir, but that must be used very, very correctly. Kashmir is otherwise a basket case for corruption, and we must ensure that whatever we put in there has its fullest effect. Failed diplomatic offensive, although on one side it has succeeded in its information offensive, but it has failed in its diplomatic offensive of trying to get the major powers, important countries of the Islamic world on its side. It's finding rekindling of Jammu and Kashmir difficult. That's what it is attempting to do today. In the last 10-15 days, this is the effort it's trying to do. But it finds it's run out of people there, it's run out of money there, it's run out of networks. And without all this, it's very, very difficult to get things going. That is why we are hoping that we have a reasonably stable winter, and next summer we will take on the infiltration, we will take on the terrorists in case there are any more created. maybe if this situation goes like this in the next 2 years or 3 years, we hope to be in a much more advantageous position. If Pakistan is fearing an emboldenment by India over Gilgit-Baltistan, then Pakistan will fight Kashmir. This is because of the statements made by our army chief, statements made by our defense minister. It is also seeking a greater Chinese and Islamic role. You see, now it's not ditched, it can't ditch Saudi Arabia. It's got too many things going with Saudi Arabia, but it's attempted to bring Turkey on board, bring Malaysia on board. But the rest of the Islamic countries, OIC, is not fighting on this at the moment. So what India is doing and what it further needs to do? Firstly, the control of infiltration. This year, only 30 terrorists have been able to infiltrate so far. The lowest. It is lower than the year when I was there. In my year, 45 managed to come through. But this year, earlier, 2,500 used to come. In the earlier years in the 90s. Neutralization of the overground worker networks. This is something we have gone after in a very, very big way. Preventing recruitment, reducing terror footprint. Don't allow the leaders to be there. Target the leaders. Don't allow money to come in there. Right? Social outreach to the people. We have to get back to the people. Win the minds of the hearts and minds of the people. Win the confidence of the people. All of government approaches needed. The restoration of confidence among the people. That you are part of a growing nation. A part of a nation in which you will be treated as an equal. De-radicalization. This is another important aspect of the social approach. Political. This is the place where we are slightly weak today, restoring grassroots political activity. Help bring Jammu and Kashmir segment together. There's Jammu and there's Kashmir. Now they are looking in different directions. We need different measures to make sure that they come together. Very, very difficult thing it is. Try and create a new political leadership. You can't just create it overnight. You can't just nurture it overnight. It has to take time. But this aspect of bringing Kashmir and Jammu together, looking into the same direction with focus, is a very important aspect. I have suggested a lot of measures. Things like adoption of different cities like Udhampur and Srinagar, maybe Baramulla and Samba adopt each other. So you can have sports activities, you can have teachers activities, you can have gender activities, you can have debates and all kinds of activities. You need to get the people to come together. The people must not shun each other. Then economic, reducing corruption, which is one of the banes of the whole problem. Balance the deployment of resources between Srinagar and Jammu side. You see, there's a whole acquisition from the Jammu people that all these years, and this is one of the reasons why there's such a schism between these two sides, that they always accuse the Kashmiri people of having taken away all the resources and deployed them into the valley. Of course, inviting investment with incentive. Now you're seeing land laws are changing. The government of India is not in any way regressive in its approach. It will ensure that it will allow land exchange, land ownership, etc. for people who are coming with money. You bring money here, invest money here, create business here, create a spirit of entrepreneurship, and you are welcome. That's the kind of thing which the government is attempting to do. And diplomatically, lastly, isolate Pakistan, neutralize this China-Pakistan nexus, develop the Indian narrative that you are a part of India, that you are a part of democracy, you are a part of a secular republic. All that aspect has to be built into this. Okay. See, this is what the encounter which happened at Machal day before yesterday. Is the young man from 18 Madras, very fine unit, 18 Madras, they served with me. And he, along with his two Jawans of his unit and one BSF Jawan, they were unfortunately, the term which Indian people outside love to use is called martyred, have been martyred in this. The correct terminology which the army uses is different. We don't say it's martyred, it says killed in action, because that's considered the appropriate military terminology. In Hindi, we call it Veer Gati, attaining ki Veer Gati. Right? It's not martyrdom, it's a kind of a different kind of a notion. Okay. So the Biden-Harris, with Biden and Harris, what can happen? A lot of people are imagining that Biden and Harris have made a lot of statements against Article 370. They are generally anti-India, and although she is of Indian origin, but she's very leftist in her approach. And these are all assumptions being made. Please read an article of mine, which has just been published in New Indian Express, which is usually available in Hyderabad. And I've shared it with Mr. Raghav Rao also, which I outlined very clearly. That look, what people out of power, anti-incumbency, when they're not incumbents, when they are out of power, what they speak is not policy. When they come back into power, then their opinion is calibrated through the help of bureaucrats, professionals. There'll be a lot of soldiers and generals and things like that who will speak to them, businessmen, a lot of academics, people who know politics very well, who know international affairs very well. It's not that Mr. Joe Biden, what he feels, Mr. Trump has tried that, I know, but Mr. Biden can't just do what he wants. Then there is a whole control over him by different segments. The Senate is still not under the Democratic control, and foreign policy is largely controlled by the Senate. So it's not as if things are changing overnight out here. Mr. Biden also knows what is China as a menace. They know India's position and what India can do for the United States. The strategic partnership which has been achieved in the last 10-15 days in the 2+2 talks with these two ministers, Secretary of State and the Defense Secretary coming to India, all these are transformational things which have happened under Trump's leadership. We need to be thankful for that, grateful for that. Trump has been good for India in all these things, not good for us in terms of our visas, for our immigration, for our trade. He's not been very good. We have to admit that also, right? Where he's good, it's good. Where he's bad, he's been bad. But at the end of the day, to think that Biden and Harris will be bad for India, to my mind, no, there is no such notion in my understanding at all. Last bit, the last slide. I thought it's important that you should go away with the understanding of this. When I showed you that map of the line of control, now this is the line of control, LOC coming up to this point, NJ984. This is the point up to which in 1949 and then in 1972, the line was delineated on ground and on the map. Now, from here, since this area was completely, in those days, it was all glaciated, 20,000 feet, 18,000 feet, icebound. They decided that there's no point going up to try and demarcate the line of control here. So they said the line of control from 9842 will flow north to the glaciers. North to the glaciers, forwards. In 6 years' time, Pakistan was sending its expeditions here. It was leading Japanese expeditions here. And when we discovered that the Pakistanis were doing this, we tried to inquire, and the Pakistanis said their perception of north to the glaciers was NJ9842 to Karakoram Pass. This line, which meant this whole glacier was theirs. The Siachen Glacier is the glacier which provides water to the Shyok River. The Shyok River drains out from there and joins the Indus. The major part of the Indus water comes from the Siachen Glacier. Just remember. So Pakistan's huge interest in this glacier. Secondly, if the glacier is in their hands, they have a far greater chance of being able to link up with the Chinese here. This is Daulat Beg Oldie. There the Indian airfield is, right? And if this is in their hands, link up here. Chinese attempt to come to DBO through the Depsang Plains, and you can have a broader border between Pakistan and China. India in 78 decided, no, we can't allow the LOC to be there. So we put our claim and we said the LOC runs from 9842 to Indira Call here. And this is along the Saltoro Ridge, climbing up to 22,000 feet. And this is on one end of the Siachen Glacier, on one flank of the Siachen Glacier. In 1984, after a lot of what is called in Hindi tutu meme, after a lot of that, India finally decided to launch an operation. And they launched a helicopter operation with one company and landed at Bilafondla here. And we occupied the glacier over a period of time. The Pakistanis were attempting to do the same. Their date was 19th of April. We beat them by 6 days and occupied this. Today, we have got our occupation all along this line. Now the Pakistanis, you meet a Pakistani general, he will tell you we should have a mutual withdrawal from the glacier because there's nothing strategic about the glacier. There's not even a blade of grass which grows here. So you tell him, okay, what is the meaning of a mutual withdrawal? And he will say, you also withdraw and we will also withdraw. You will agree to it, just like a lot of Indian bureaucrats agreed to it, that we should have a mutual withdrawal. But if the Pakistani general tells me, he who has commanded his unit here, I will tell him, tell me, what is the meaning of mutual withdrawal? Does a mutual withdrawal mean, for me, the mutual withdrawal means only I will leave this area and come down here. The Pakistanis are not even here. So this is the biggest fallacy that they have been making a fool of our country by telling our people, telling our leaders, telling our bureaucrats, let's have a mutual withdrawal. Thankfully, the Indian army stuck on. Because if we leave this area and come down here, and the Pakistanis one fine day, like it happened in Kargil, they come and occupy this area, then I can tell you, it will take you 10,000 lives to get it back. Are we willing to sacrifice those 10,000 lives of our soldiers? That's the million-dollar question we should be asking ourselves. Thank you very much. I have come to an end here, and I'm looking forward to your questions. Just a second, let me just stop sharing. Yeah.
Thank you so much, General. I don't know, apart from the word enlightening, I run out of adjectives. But plenty have been used by our friends in the chat box. And I thought the most, to me, the most interesting question, and hopefully it will be to you, is Kashi Vishwanath, one of our members, is talking about how can India use Xinjiang and Tibet to foment trouble as a bargaining chip to close their eyes on getting back POK, thereby getting control of terrain. So, in fact, in a sense, you could say China occupied Tibet. So why are we accepted it at that time and just accept it? But can we not now say, look, it's not your territory, and we start creating problems there?
Thank you. That's a good question, an expected question. And that's a question which will, the response to which will be good for everyone to know. The common perception among people who are not linked to national security issues or military affairs normally is that these kind of things can be done on the turn of a key. That you can start a war in Tibet, or you can start a movement in Tibet, or you can get to Xinjiang and start something there. Let me assure you, it takes years to build this. It takes years. China, Pakistan has done this to us not over 30 years, what's happening in Kashmir. It's done this to us over 70 years. From 1947, they've done it to us. And which is why they've achieved this with the commonality of, ethnicity, language, and things like that. First of all, we have no land borders with Xinjiang, just like we have no land borders with Balochistan. So it's very easy to, someone should also say that we should be doing this to Balochistan. We have no land borders in Balochistan. But let me assure you that our presence in Afghanistan, particularly Kandahar, was to some extent used for this. Since I'm talking to Indians, we can talk about it. Was used for this particular purpose. Because Kandahar is the closest to Balochistan from the Afghanistan side. We opened a consulate there. That consulate is closing down, unfortunately, today. That we opened that consulate, and from there we could do a tremendous amount of activity. The Pakistanis were livid about that. They wanted to close down that consulate somehow or the other. That's the reason why they kept attacking that consulate. All these years, if you remember, terrorist activity in Kandahar and this, that against us all the time. So what I want to tell you is that yes, you have to make a beginning. If you want to take a decision to do it, then you have to make a beginning sometime, right? And there will be a lot of naysayers for this also. There will be a lot of naysayers to say China is a very big country. China's response against you can be very, very militaristic, and we cannot sort of challenge them. Sorry, China is not a country which is going to come to war so easily. Let's be very clear on this, right? They also know what is their limits. The last time China fought a war, they were defeated in 1979. The last time they actually fought against us was 67, right? And they were defeated in Nathula. The last time they tried to challenge us in 86, 87 at Tumdrongchu in Arunachal Pradesh. We came to loggerheads without firing a shot, but the Chinese withdrew. It happened in Sikkim again, Doklam in 2017. So China doesn't have a great record. I think we shouldn't go by that at all. If we have to, I think there's a level of subtlety which has to be built into this, right? You start small, but talk big. Start small and talk very big. Your talking big is in today's world with social media, there's that, and all kinds of means of communication, internet activity, etc. You can build up a facade even at the time when you are still not very big. And and you can continue it. I mean, strategic objectives don't have to be achieved in 6 months. Strategic objectives don't have to be achieved in even 3 years or 4 years. You are looking at a situation 20 years. Remember, the Chinese have said greatness of China 2049. They have said 2035, we must have the most powerful army in the world, armed forces in the world capable of defeating any country. And 2049, we should be the supreme power of the world. Then they're looking at 30 years later. Why are we looking at? We should never look at short-term objectives, long-term objectives. How are we going to contest them at that time, right? So I agree with you. While I'm cautioning you at the same time that it's a difficult game, not so easy. Where did the Pakistanis pick up the methodologies of playing this game in Kashmir? They picked it up in Afghanistan, right through the 80s. Right through the 80s, the ISI and the ISPR. In fact, most people in India have no idea what is the ISPR. ISI is Inter-Services Intelligence, the devious intelligence agency of Pakistan. The ISPR is an organization called Inter-Services Public Relations. It's older than the ISI. It was raised in 1949, primarily to use information as a weapon system. And the Pakistanis are adept at that, using information to play mind games, which is what they're doing against the Pakistanis, against the Kashmiris. We need to be adept at this. I hope the government of India is looking at it much more seriously. We need to be able to exploit our technological capability. We have some of the best soft power specialists in the world. We've got great hard power. We've got great computer technicians with us in all around the world. I think we can develop these systems ourselves and create a culture of being able to use information as a weapon system. Because let me assure you, in the generations of warfare, today we are entering into the 6th generation. And the 6th generation of warfare is all about the mind. And China's doctrine of 2003 is so clear, which says, win a war, this is a quote straight out of Sun Tzu, win a war without fighting a war. Don't have to fight a war. You win the war without fighting it by making sure that the mind of your enemy is subjugated even before you think of fighting a war. That is the way to fight a war. And that is information. And today is a world of information systems. We haven't even seen 10% of what the world will achieve in the next 30, 40 years on information systems. We can't even imagine some of that.
Super. Another question which troubles me also, and Rotarian Surendra asks, how can we tolerate a flag of Kashmir? There seems to be something called, in fact, just yesterday, Mehbooba Mufti said, I will, unfurl both the tricolor and the Kashmiri flag. How can we tolerate a separate flag for a sparse?
It is ridiculous, absolutely, first of all. Let me make it very clear. Mehbooba Mufti has not thought through her actions at all. I thought that by being in custody or being in, under house arrest or whatever, she would have deeply thought about what the future holds for her party, herself, her family. I was quite disappointed when they came out. Omar has been thinking very much himself. Omar has been stating things, but he has never stated anything about the flag. All he has said is that they will look for Article 370 restoration. So someone said that, but the government is there, they've got 303 seats, nothing is going to change. He says, no government lasts forever. That is Omar's notion. No, last government lasts forever. It will change in 5 years, in 10 years, in 15 years, or 20 years. We'll wait. So, which means that this conflict is going to carry on. If you are going to have this kind of a situation, it's now entered into different dimensions. On one side, you have a Pakistan, which is hell-bent on creating a proxy war situation. Second side, you have the separatists who want to create an Azad Kashmir, right? On the third domain now, the third dimension now, you have got Indian politicians, Indian Kashmiri politicians who are now fighting for this Article 370 and special status and things like that. So this conflict has got much more complicated than it was ever in all these years. We'll have to understand it in all those three domains. And we'll have to fight it in all those three domains, because it can get very complicated if you mix up this entire thing completely. That is where you're going to find human rights allegations against you and things like that all the time. You know, the next thing you'll find, if Mehbooba Mufti keeps on insisting on this, and somewhere this flag, the Jammu and Kashmir flag comes up, you'll find she may get arrested again. You may put under house arrest again, and then you'll find the world again talking about human rights and the PDP talking about human rights and things like that. So it's going to complicate matters, there's no doubt. The government of India has to be very clear in its intent and projection internationally. I mean, of course, internationally, we should not be so worried about international opinion to sort of completely subjugate us. But remember, the world is globalized today. The world is a much more networked world today, right? Mr. Trump was trying to destroy globalization to a great extent. I think it may all come back tomorrow. So we have to live with the nations. And you cannot live in a situation where the complete OIC is against you. You can't have a situation where West Europe is against you. You have to live with these countries after all. So international opinion about what you do does make a difference. And therefore you have to play it very, very carefully, not necessarily rush into things. I think our leaders in Delhi understand this very, very, very well. And although they took some strong decisions on the 5th of August, whatever decisions have to be taken in the future will be taken with a pinch of salt to make sure that we come out only the winner out of it and don't lose the advantage that we have at the moment.
Though we're probably running a little beyond time.
No problems.
Understandably, when my wife puts in a question, I have to put it up. And that is that she has a curiosity. Why is the culture of Kashmir dominated the entire Jammu and Kashmir region? In fact, even looking at the terrorism thing, as far as we know, it's only 2 or 3 districts of Kashmir, and certainly not Jammu. And sorry, I'll just add one more rider. When are the Pandits ever going to come back to Kashmir, who were exiled and butchered so many years ago? I think that's an important thing we need.
I will answer the second question first. Ma'am, I would strongly recommend to you to go on YouTube, and you must type in my name, and also make a note along with my name, type Jammu and Kashmir Samaj. Jammu and Kashmir Samaj. If you type this, you will come across a speech of mine, which is doing the rounds at the moment because it's now completed 1 year. I never expected that it will have 2 million hits. That speech has had 2 million hits. It's an 11-minute speech. The Kashmiri Pandits called me to their Samaj. They have known me that I am a person who has been very, very sympathetic towards their cause. I helped them a lot in Kashmir while I was the Corps Commander, making sure that my advice to them was always available strategically. And even today, my advice is always available. One of the pieces of advice I gave in that speech to them was, if you are in a situation that, as you are at the moment, ensure you go back to Kashmir and ensure you retain your culture. You continue making sure that your culture is brought to the limelight, which means you go back to your yatras. You know, the yatras which have become defunct today. There are hundreds of yatras in Kashmir actually. They have become defunct today. Go back. Perform yagnas, perform pujas. And that way, you'll be in the limelight, your culture will remain in the limelight, religion will remain in the limelight. A lot of people find it very strange coming from me. Why? How would I give this advice? I said, I'm giving it to you as a strategic person. I'm giving it to you as an Indian, as an Indian patriot. Many people sometimes just wonder. This is for your information that I have done the Amarnath Yatra 8 times myself, and 4 times I have led it, which meant that I was the first person to do the puja at the holy cave on top. So this is the advice I've always given to the Kashmiri Pandits, and I told them that their elimination and their removal from Kashmir from physically was it was essential. It was pre-essential for the Pakistani doctrine to succeed. It was essential that the 400,000 odd Kashmiri Pandits are removed from there. The culture is removed from there, so that Kashmir is looked upon as purely Islamic, and that the Islamic connect to Pakistan becomes more distinct, which I told you in that slide on Ziaul Haq, that is, Islamic connect is very important. They must create that and must create a fundamentalist, a radicalist culture in Kashmir. They have not succeeded in doing it fully. They've succeeded to some extent, but not fully. But the removal of the Pandits was a very essential part of this strategy. Now, we should be countering it completely by working for the restoration of the Pandits. But this should not be done in a hurry. You have to think this through. A lot of people are in a tearing hurry. Let's just send them back. Let me tell you, as a commander there, as the corps commander there, I brought 1,200 families back, 1,200 Kashmiri Pandit families back. I put them into a almost like a prison camp. I put them in a camp which was wired all over, I had security around it. I'm not wanting to bring them that way. There's no point. That's not going to achieve anything. That's an artificial thing. I want to bring them when you are in a situation of acceptance. Now, a lot of Kashmiri Muslims, some of them very, very pragmatic, sensible people, do speak about the aspect of regret for what happened, etc. And they want to have the Kashmiri Pandits back. But how do you establish that level of trust after you have had such a major problem in which you had a flight of 300,000, 400,000 people? How do you establish that trust? It can't happen overnight. And it can't happen by creating artificial islands for Kashmiri Pandits. Or it can't happen with Kashmiri Pandits being brought and told, go back to your homes and not giving them security, because there are still terrorists around. And you will still have those famous incidents of Bandhama or Chittisingpura where 30 Kashmiri Pandits have been killed, 20 have been killed. Can't afford to have it at all. So that is the reason why the government of India is a little reluctant to push them in at the moment until the situation has calmed down much more. To my mind, it is going to take a couple of years. It's going to take a couple of years. This generation of Pandits who moved out of the valley is going to find it difficult. They're coming back to their roots. They are very keen to come back to the roots, many of them. What is going to happen, and that's the social reality, is their children. Many of them have moved on. Many of them have moved to Mumbai, Hyderabad, Bangalore. Many have gone to New York, Washington. None of them want to come and stay, settle in Kashmir. So this is a double whammy. That's a problem which you are going to face. That very few people will probably go back to Kashmir. Maybe it may be helpful to us in the beginning. That the return of a few, we can protect them, we can have them accepted there, etc. And now with this business, which the government has been good in this, in the management of this. The government has passed certain laws about the return of the properties of the Kashmiris. You can't have this. They've done away with the Roshni Act of 2001, by which people who were sitting on these properties, sitting on government properties, etc., they have to return these properties. They have to return all these properties. So we are at a cusp period at the moment. Very, very difficult time at the moment. And I don't think we should artificially look at trying to just send the Kashmiri Pandits back, because it may just lead to something more counterproductive. Completely. Your first question, the aspect of why is the culture of Kashmir so dominant, in the sense, in the whole of Jammu and Kashmir, why is it so dominant? No, I would not agree with you entirely. The second observation you had that there are 2, 3, 4 districts which are more involved with terror, etc. I do agree to an extent, but let me give you an explanation of that. First of all, both Jammu and Kashmir have got their distinct identities. Let me tell you. Jammu as the city of temples, right? Kashmir as a tourist, as a haven of tourists and a place for rishis, munis, the Sufi tradition, etc. Kashmir is known more for Sufi tradition than for this Ahle Hadith kind of tradition. Sufi tradition meant, you'll be surprised, Kashmir is one of those places where beef was never eaten. Most people don't know it. Beef was never eaten. Why? In deferment to the sentiments of the Kashmiri Pandits. The Sufis never ate beef. Secondly, a lot of people don't know the Sufi Qawwali. The tradition of the Sufi Qawwali, which you go to, if you go to Ajmer Dargah Sharif, you'll find the Qawwali being sung there. Where did the Qawwali come from? Most people are unaware in India. The Qawwali, which is sung as devotional music of the Muslims, has actually come from the Hindu culture. It's derived from Hindu culture. When the Muslims came to India, they found this fascinating way by which the Hindus sang bhajans to the gods. It fascinated them. And they adopted the same, which is frowned upon by the Ahle Hadith, is frowned upon by the Wahhabis because they think this is very anti-Muslim, right? But this is the distinct culture of Kashmir. Actually, the actual culture of Kashmir. Kashmir has changed hands so many times. It's been Buddhist at one time, it's been Muslim at many times. Later on, you had the Dogra Empire there. You had the Dogra, the Hindu dominance over it. So it's changed cultures many times. But the prevalent culture has been the culture of the Sufis. And in the south of the Pir Panjal, in the Jammu region, it's been a city of temples. And as you come southwards from Kashmir, you will find that the Muslim population starts dwindling and the Hindu population starts rising. So around the Chenab, you will find 50% Hindu, 50% Muslim. By the time you come to Jammu, you will find much more Hindu, less Muslim. And by the time you come to Kathua, it is almost entirely Hindu, except for a few of these Bakarwals, Gujars and Bakarwals who are Muslims. So there has been a fair amount of tolerance among people. There has been a history of strife between the two at the same time. I cannot deny it. Now the question is, why has Kashmiri culture been? Why your perception is saying this, that Kashmiri culture seems to be the dominant culture because you've been hearing only about Kashmir in the last so many years. Since 1989, you've been hearing it in the news all the time. Something has happened in Kashmir, something has happened in Kashmir. Earlier in the 90s, 2001, 2005, a lot of things used to happen in Jammu side also. Doda, Kishtwar, Poonch, Naushera, these are the areas which people in India don't hear so much. But lots of things used to happen there also about 15 years ago. Right? Today, everything is restricted to the valley because the Indian Army has been able to restrict terror to the valley alone. And in the valley, mainly to South. Hello? And mainly to South Kashmir, purely. Right? So that is the prime reason why you are hearing so much about the valley. Now, in Kashmir, there are 10 districts today. There are a total of 10 districts. And I would say the predominant terror footprint, which has been there all these years, has been in Anantnag, it's been in Kulgam, it's been in Pulwama, it has been in Shupian, there's 4 districts straight away. It's been in Baramulla in a very big way. I've been the commander of Baramulla myself. It's been in Bandipur. It has been in Kupwara. I have counted 7 districts for you where I have experienced it in a very big way. A lot of people say that there are only 4 districts in which terror activity. Today, yes.
How is your back? Beautiful meeting. Excellent.
There is a tremendous amount of back chatter going on top. Thank you. So this is the reason that is why I'm differing slightly with you. I'm only correcting you slightly in a perception that actually separatism and terrorism and radicalism has been existent in about 6 to 7 districts. The areas where there has been nothing at all, no terrorism at all, very pro-India, is primarily the Uri area and all along the Shamshabari range, which I showed you, all along those mountains. Those are Pahadi people, all Punjabi, Dogri speaking. Those people are generally pro-India. It is primarily the valley floor where the Kashmiri people, Kashmiri speaking people exist. That's where the problem of terror, the problem of radicalization has existed all these years. Yeah.
Raghav, you are on mute.
Yeah, thank you so much. And then let me hand the meeting back to our President Raja.
Thank you. Thank you, General.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now I request our club secretary, Ravi Madabushi, to give vote of thanks, followed by recognition of the guest and the declaration on it.
Thank you, Raja. It was wonderful hearing you, General Hasnan. Thank you so much, and it was so elaborative and informative session. We had a very beautiful evening this day, and I don't want to dilute anything talking about the things that you have spoken. And it was a great insight for all of us to know about the issues of Kashmir and the other borders. Thank you so much for your valuable time and being so generous to be with us this evening. And it was very informative, very elaborative. The PowerPoint presentation has given a lot of insight to all of us here. So I thank you once again on behalf of all of our members this evening. Thank you. And I also thank Raghav for bringing him to our club this evening. Thank you, Raghav. Hello.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. I really enjoyed doing this, and your questions were outstanding. Thank you, Raghav Rao Saab. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mrs. Rao. All the very best.
Thank you so much, General, once again. Let me quickly recognize, do some recognitions. I recognize the presence of Harhar Prasad, Upendra Ravi, rotated Upendra Ravi, Nawal Chaudhary, and Abhiram, Indra, rotated Indra, rotated Suryam, and Ravindra Kumar. Please tell me in case if I have missed out anyone.
Yeah, we also had Suresh Balla all the way from somewhere in the US.
Yeah, Suresh Balla, yes.
Down there.
Did I miss out anyone?
Perhaps Ramaseshan, he was there.
Thank you, sir.
I'll just, one moment. Let me do the announcements. Our IPP Murthy is celebrating his birthday on 14th of November. Can you help me out? This I'm not able to open this. Raja, do you have the list of birthdays? Raja, President. Birthday list you have?
So if it's not
I'm
there,
not able to open it.
Put it in the WhatsApp. Put it in the WhatsApp. Don't worry.
Yeah. Only one thing I remember is IPP Murthy is celebrating his birthday on 14th of this month. And rest of the people I missed out. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Thank you for wonderful meeting. Thank you.
Okay, close the meeting. At one time.
Hey, wish you all very happy Diwali, man. Safe Diwali.
Thank you.
Raghav sir, please share the recording. It's quite interesting.
Do that. We'll do that.